Welcome to episode 240 of the AGEIST Podcast. I'm David Stewart. Great to be with you today. And today I speak with someone who's made it her life's mission to bring back the joy that so many of us can lose from time to time over the years. Carrie Owerko. We're going to talk to Carrie about movement because Carrie is a self-declared movement optimist, a playful disruptor in the world of yoga, and a reminder that physicality doesn't have to be rigid to be powerful. I think we forget that a lot of times. Here are a few key moments from our chat.
If it isn't bringing us joy, I'm not going to say it's not worth doing. I think it is worth doing, but the things that bring us joy, the movement activities that bring us joy, they are the ones that nurture us. They're the ones that are sustainable, and they're the ones that we will find a way to adapt and evolve as we do. I think that as people get older, fear comes in. There's all the things that everybody's told you about what you should and shouldn't do. And then maybe you've had injuries because let's face it, like who doesn't? You go through life, if you're an active person, stuff is going to happen. Okay. It just is.
We'll jump on with Carrie in just a moment after a quick word from our sponsors. Today's show is sponsored by Fatty 15. Fatty 15 features the first essential fatty acid to be discovered in 90 years and is on a mission to restore your long-term health. Go to fatty15.com/ageist. Use the code AGEIST at checkout for 15% off their 90-day subscription starter kit. This show is also brought to you by Maui Nui. Maui Nui's wild venison is the cleanest, most nutrient-dense red meat out there. It's high in protein, rich in antioxidants, and ethically harvested. Their venison sticks are perfect for healthy snacking on the go. Check it out in the link in bio or go to mauinuivenison.com/ageist. Today's show is also brought to you by LMNT, spelled LMNT. Go to drinkelement.com and get yourself a free 8-serving sample pack with the purchase of any of their electrolyte drink mixes. If you've ever felt stuck in your routine or like your body is just going through the motions, Carrie offers a fresh perspective. Let's give her a call right now. Carrie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Where does this podcast find you today?
In New York City.
Wonderful. I, too, am in the city. My guess is we're in different parts. Where are you in the city?
Upper West Side. Yep.
My wife was just pointing out to me that because we live here, like you and I, we have a vernacular. That
Yes.
You said only New Yorkers refer to where they live as the city.
Yes.
No one else. Like if you live in Chicago, you don't say the city or Los Angeles or wherever else you live. Anyway. Give us a quick rundown on your background, Carrie.
Oh, this is always so hard, the quick rundown. I will just say, in general, I just consider myself to be a movement optimist. I think movement is medicine. I think it's one of the best things that we can do for ourselves. And the best thing to do is find what you love and to do what you love and to have options. So I'm also a movement optionist. Okay, so an optimist and an optionist. I grew up being very active kid in athletics. I grew up in rural New Mexico, so there wasn't a lot of what I wanted to do there. I always wanted to dance, and I'm 63, so the Olympics, I think it was Olga Korbut in I can't remember which year those Olympics, you know, and I was so obsessed with her, and I just started doing the stuff in the backyard, and my parents were like, she's going to kill herself. So they were so wonderful. They drove me a few hours north into Colorado to train for a bit. It was always that thing where I loved movement. And my parents, that wasn't their background, but they both taught like swimming during the week or skiing on the weekend. So we were a very active family and they were teaching. And so I just grew up with a love of that. And I studied theater in college, theater and dance. So that was my big passion. And I moved to the East Coast and then eventually via Boston, found my way to New York, continued to work in movement theater, did dance, did musicals, and eventually I wanted to study movement more in depth because that was always a big passion. So I studied at the Laban Bartenieff Institute of Movement Studies here in New York City. And I followed that train of just in-depth study of coming at movement from different angles, got into yoga very deeply for several decades. But then at some point, and I still do yoga and love yoga and teach yoga, but I've approached it in an eclectic way. I love to see the connections between things. I've always loved to dance. So somehow I just decide, how you find your way back home. You find your way back to your first loves, I think. At least I did, to being 3 years old and knowing what I loved, at 3 years old, and then saying, yes, you can integrate these things because, as a human, we're not just one thing. Yeah, so that's what I love doing now is finding the connections, following what, brings me joy and movement. And when I'm teaching other people, I share what I love because I think when you're passionate about something, it that makes a big difference. Like if somebody wants to teach something and they're really into it, then I'm going to do something with them because their passion will ignite something in me. So, but I also love, if my students have a priority, if there's something that they're interested in working on, then of course, then it's like that's where I feel like, okay, I have certain skills and background to be able to help them do what they love. Because at the end of the day, if it isn't bringing us joy, I'm not going to say it's not worth doing. I think it is worth doing, but the things that bring us joy, the movement activities that bring us joy, and it doesn't just have to be movement, but that's my field. They are the ones that nurture us. They're the ones that are sustainable, and they're the ones that we will find a way to adapt and evolve as we do, because we're always changing. Life circumstances happen, and that love of something is what is going to fortify us when, stuff happens and we need to find a way to, change what we're doing or something in our life to facilitate continuing to do the thing that brings us joy. And play, because we discussed that is the thing that I think probably because of my background in the theater and the way that my parents approached teaching movement themselves was always through play. I just think it's the best way to learn anything. And adults, unfortunately, sometimes don't play as much as children. And that's really unfortunate because I think everyone is their best selves when they're playing. So it just brings out the best in people.
I was a Maui Nui customer for a year, and I'm so pleased to now have them as a sponsor of this podcast. This, I gotta say, is the best protein I have ever had. If you want to get all the benefits of high quality red meat without the junk, here's what makes Maui Nui really special. This is not farmed meat. It comes from wild access deer. Now, these are not good guys. They are an invasive species in Hawaii causing havoc on the local ecosystem. By harvesting these animals humanely, Maui Nui is restoring the balance to the environment while providing one of the most sustainable, ethical meat options out there. You're not just eating better, you're doing better. It's lean, it's clean, it's free from all the additives and stress hormones you'd normally find in conventionally raised meat. Their starter box is a great way to begin, with premium cuts, step-by-step cooking tips, or just stock up on the sticks and bone broth and keep it easy. So if you're someone who cares about health, performance, and the planet, ditch the beef. Go to mauinuivenison.com/ageist or click on the link in our show notes and try a better red meat. As someone who thinks a lot about aging, I've tried most everything, from cutting-edge tech to the simplest things like walking more and sleeping better. But what really caught my attention recently is something that feels quietly revolutionary. It's called Fatty 15. This isn't just another supplement. Fatty 15 is built around C15, a newly discovered essential fatty acid, the first to be found in over 90 years. That's right, discovered by Dr. Stephanie Venn Watson while working with aging dolphins in the US Navy. Dolphins, who knew they'd teach us so much about human health? What makes C15 remarkable is how it repairs and protects our cells, boosting energy, supporting sleep, cognitive function, and even smoothing out those stiff joints we start to notice more as we age. Based on over 100 studies, we now know that C15 strengthens our cells and is a key healthy aging nutrient, which helps to slow biological aging at the cellular level. In fact, when our cells don't have enough C15, they become fragile and age faster. When our cells age, our bodies age too. Fatty 15 is clean, 100% pure, vegan, and free from all the junk you don't need. Over 70% of users report real benefits within 16 weeks. Fatty 15 is on a mission to optimize your C15 levels to help support your long-term health and wellness, especially as you age. You can get an additional 15% off their 90-day subscription starter kit by going to fatty15.com/ageist and using code AGEIST at checkout. So if you want to age like you mean it, gracefully, powerfully, and with purpose, Fatty 15 is a smart place to start. I love this idea of play because I think that I spend a lot of time in the gym. I'm somebody who likes gyms. I get it's not everybody's jam, but I like gyms. I think that so much of like fitness is become not really play. And I'm in there and I have a trainer or something and I'll just say like, oh, well, why don't we do something like, can I do like hanging clocks or something? Can I hang up upside down? How do I, they sort of look at me like, well, yeah, but it's just like, what sort of novel way can we do this thing? And I know there certain movements I do that you can't novelly do a deadlift. Like it is, you either do it or you don't, right?
Oh, yes, you can.
Well, I guess you can. I don't know. I would be a little frightened of doing that. I had an opportunity, was it last week or the week before? I was teaching at MEA in Santa Fe, and I was brought in with Rebecca Rush to talk about physicality, and we had everybody do these warm-ups. But I have people do warm-ups, like I have them skipping, and I have them jumping, and I have them doing these sort of cross-leg walk things that are kind of confusing to do. It's a way of there are other ways to sort of warm up your body, get your nervous system activated for movement. But if you can do it in a way that's kind of fun, that's more playful, I just find it more enjoyable than getting on an elliptical or something.
Yeah. 100%. And I think everything works better then too, because we're not
Yeah,
like that it's integrative, like play, like you mentioned skipping. It's just one of the best things we can
I
do.
love skipping. Skipping's like the best thing.
It's the best thing. It's so much fun. And I've used it in numerous workshops across the globe when, especially when I was teaching more traditional Iyengar yoga workshops where Iyengar yoga is not known for being playful. Like I kind of got into this idea of like really hitting play, not hitting it hard, but like saying, no, I'm just going to say that we're going to play because everyone was so serious all the time and trying to get it right.
Right.
And that just seemed antithetical to the whole, like, it's yoga. Like, I don't know, like, BKS Iyengar, Mr. Iyengar, who was our teacher, who created the style of yoga that I studied for so long, he was, in his own practice, playful. You know, it was always what if, like, if what if we do it like this or what if we do it like that? And it was always the question led the endeavor, like it was curiosity led. So you say, why, well, why can't I do hanging clocks or whatever? You can. I think that the answer is yes. Yes, like yes, and so if your trainer has something that he, obviously has goals for you, or hopefully they're your goals, but that there's some there's some alignment there. But it's interesting to follow those sometimes. Does it have to be prevalent in every aspect of your training or your practice? No, I mean sometimes you're dialing it in with certain skill learning or specific things that you might be working on or training. But I feel like those questions that we have where we're curious about something, it's very interesting to follow those threads because there is something that I think sometimes our body is asking for. That's what I felt, or our mind, imagination. I felt that in my own practice. Like I had questions, I had inclinations. And then I finally just gave myself permission to play. That's what I had initially was like my little tagline, how Nike is just do it. Well, I was like Carrie Owerko yoga, permission to play. That was my little tagline because it became this mission to say, well, if you, because I would be in doing inversions, and my legs are split and doing different things and I'm upside down and I would want to feel my legs more. I'm like, I know that I can find ways to improve my proprioception of my legs in this open chain activity and they're not on the ground and they're not contacting the earth the way they normally would be. So I started, tying therabands around my legs and feeling that stretch and how the band would give me or tying myself up in them, not because it was novelty for novelty's sake, though I think a case could be made for that sometimes, but it was because I wanted to feel these different relationships of my body parts more directly. And
Mm.
it really helped. And it was amazing, and so I think that it's interesting. Why did you want to do the hanging?
I think what it is when we're young, we have a much more extensive vocabulary of movement, and this vocabulary gets reduced. And it's like you start off with like the 64 colors in the Crayolas, right? In the box, you get like the big box and all this
I
stuff.
love that big box.
But then after a while, you're down to like the 5 box, right? And I think that a lot of like what we're talking about is regaining this vocabulary. And the way we do that is we explore a new movement, some new thing, like you were talking with the bands or I don't know, whatever.
Ever. Yeah.
I'm thinking back towards this experience I had, and there was a gentleman there. We had like a step, and I said, "Okay, 2 legs. I want you to jump up on the step." No problem. Okay. I said, "Now I want you to jump on the step 1 leg." And he looks at me in panic,
Yeah.
and he's like, "I can't do that." I said, "Okay, here, we're gonna go over the flat ground. I had 1 leg. I just want you to jump ahead." Okay, we did that a few times. "Okay, come back here. All right, we're gonna go up on the step." And I said, "I'll catch you if you fall." And he jumps up on the step with 1 leg, and his face lights up, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know I could do that." So, okay, so now there's a new Crayola that got stuck back in the box. It's the same thing as we get
Yes.
older, unless we continue to expand our social group, our knowledge base, and also our movement patterns, they shrink, right? So, you gotta bring
Yes.
some new ones in.
It's so true. And I think there's so many reasons for that. Children are constantly exploring and experimenting because they're in that like time of just extreme neuroplasticity, and they're all learning is play. It's all
Right.
play,
Yeah.
all of it. And so and they try things and they fall down and they tumble and they don't care. They might think it's funny, like it's all this
Right.
just learning, like it through play. And then as we get older, there are a lot of rules and trainers telling you certain things, or dance teachers, or what, like whatever, whomever, fitness experts, and it can be I think that unfortunately what happens, and it's the rules, it's from the outside, but it's also from the inside, because people will have, different responsibilities and stressors, and sometimes it's like, wow, if they just, and I understand that, like, reduce what they're doing to this. Well, just do these 3 movements, and that's great, because like, something is definitely better than nothing, and
Mhm.
sometimes you're just add a little bit of novelty. Like, you don't have to overwhelm your nervous system with, like, everything's new, right? It can be just a little, like, do that routine that you feel safe doing, that you're just, you're like, "That's my routine, that's what I do," and then, just one thing that's a little bit different that day. It's like taking the different route. Like, you live at a Lower East Side, right? So if you take a different route. So I like to take dance class at Steps on Broadway. Like, just love that place. And so I'm there almost every day. And so my husband will sometimes meet me with our dog, Pearl. And depends on when the class is. But like, then we'll walk back home with Pearl, like up Riverside Park. There's the route that we usually take, which is past the pet store, if we're going to go in there and get Pearl a snack and whatever other things we need from this pet store. But sometimes we'll just, oh, I'll be like, oh, I have to go to this drugstore, or we have to do this thing. We go down a different street. And you know how in New York City, well, there's a lot to look at. Like, you go, okay, we always walk down 76th. But one time we were walking down 75th. Like, we were on the different side of the street that we normally walk on. And we were thinking that it was 76 that we always walk on going west. And I'm like, oh, how different it is that we're on the other side of the street and all the buildings look different. And then we're like looking around, we're like, wait, it's like a different street entirely, And it's so, you're on a different route. You're taking a different path. It's within the same realm of what you usually do. So it's not that different, but it's a little different. And all of a sudden, like, your eyes open up and you're looking up and you're like, oh, cool. Cause there's like so much to look at in the city in terms of like, I love on the Upper West Side, the architecture, just the different brownstones. They're also cool. They're also different. And I think that as people get older, fear comes in. There's all the things that everybody's told you about what you should and shouldn't do. And then maybe you've had injuries because let's face it, like who doesn't? You go through life, if you're an active person, stuff is going to happen. Okay? It just is. It's going to happen if you're not active too, probably more so. So, that can inhibit that willingness to try, but I think it's really the wonderful thing about a playful approach, especially like almost like even more so when we have these different factors that are conditioning our choices, is to practice. Like it's like literally a practice. Play. Not like you're going to get good at it because there's nothing to get good at, but it's like practice doing just one thing different, a little bit differently, or put yourself in that new environment. It's deliberate stress inoculation. I don't know, like you're nervous about going to, but you do it. And then it's so empowering because you're like, I'm okay. Like I'm not only okay, I'm actually really great. Then it just starts to create this momentum where we're not led by fear or apprehension or somebody else's idea of how we should be, how we should dress, how we should move, how we should behave, because there's so much of that. And there's so much of that from, just culture in general, but also like well meaning people telling you, you have to eat then, you have to do this. Like, it's just like, shut up and let me eat.
Did you know that just pounding water all day is not going to keep you hydrated? You need the right mix of electrolytes in that water to help that water be absorbed properly and also to help your body function well with the right electrolytes. Element, LMNT, contains sodium, potassium, and magnesium, which are critical for helping our brains and our bodies function. One of the unfortunate facts is as we get older, it's harder to drink water, essentially because our thirst response is diminished. So we need to put extra emphasis on drinking water, staying hydrated with the right electrolytes. Of course, if you are pre-hypertensive or have hypertension, check with your doctor before having anything with sodium in it. For the rest of us, though, Element is a great solution. Go to drinkelement.com. That's DRINK, LMNT.com, and get yourself a free 8-serving sample pack with the purchase of any electrolyte drink mix. I have a new theory, Carrie. It's
Yeah.
called the it's not too late theory.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that that's really, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. And if somebody else feels like it's too late for them, okay, like that's your choice. But I love challenging that belief in myself. Like if that, because it comes up for sure. It's too late to learn that instrument. Oh, it's too late to learn French. We go to Paris I love Paris. I'm like, I want to live in Paris, but I don't speak French. I learn French. Yes, you can. It's not too late. And so it's, challenging that in myself because the voice from others, whatever, they're telling you all kinds of things. But it's the voice within oneself or the internalized external, that is fun to push against that. Yes, learning is hard. And I think that if we understand that it's going to be uncomfortable, that's really key. It's going to be uncomfortable. Like it's going to be frustrating. you know, but it's also going to be fun because there are those little moments of something happening, where you go like you're learning some new movement skill or a new language or new instrument, a new programming computer, whatever it is. And it's just all this like confusion and frustration. And then there are those moments where you feel like, "God, I think I understand that one thing, or one thing clicked." And that fuels that if one thing can click, then two things could click. It always starts with one thing. Like it's just going to be that first step. It always. It's not too late. I mean, what else can we do? You know, not do.
Let's think about the intersection of movement and my theory, my it's not too late theory.
Yeah. Yeah. How we do something might have to look different. When we're exploring movement, I think that the best thing that a movement teacher or a trainer, therapist, I don't know, whomever's working with someone, rather than telling that person what to do all the time, because that doesn't create autonomy in the mover. And so if the learning process can be such where there is there is some instruction that's helpful, but there needs to be some room where the mover isn't constantly being instructed, handled, told what to do. I think there can be, and I know a lot of people disagree with me on this, and they're like, especially when people are older. And I think that doesn't really matter. Actually, people are better learners than we give them credit for being. And we disempower them when we don't allow them to self-correct, like to learn through repetition and through making mistakes because it's going to be okay. Your body will figure it out. Your body and brain will figure it out. And the thing is, it will probably figure it out in a way that is better, not always, but often, for your individual, very unique, you know, morphology, history, psychology, all of those things, than someone else's idea of how it should be. And that's variability. That's that variability in bodies because we're all different. And people will find different ways of doing that deadlift. And somebody's going to look at it and be like, "No, that's wrong. You're going to hurt yourself." But they don't know that. And it's really unfortunate because I think that the your theory of it's not too late and movement is that if there's fear around it, that's a big thing that's going to stop someone from an exploration. And yeah, there are risks. I mean, we can't pretend that there aren't risks for children on swing sets or adults. They're just risks in living. But the learning can't happen, change can't happen, adaptation isn't going to happen unless there's some risk, unless there's some action. And so, if someone has been coached or taught in a way to kind of ask themselves questions like, how does this feel? Like they're tuning into their own body, and rather than trying to get it right, like just questions around what do you feel when rather than do this for this muscle group. Well, what do you feel? Where do you feel it? Just those things like can be really helpful because then they can adjust and adapt what they're doing to if they're working on they want to focus on developing strength in a certain area. We'll just use that as an example. There can be a series of questions that will guide someone towards making better choices for themselves, like how much weight to lift, like just I think that process of asking questions, and then we learn to ask those questions of ourselves, like how many more times could I lift this? Like, it's a really important question, rather than just, oh, that they said to do X number of reps for X number of sets or hold this pose for a certain amount of time. I think I could hold it longer. Like, and then you try and you see, and then you find that edge, whatever that is. And that is a learning process that's being guided by the learner, the mover
Uh,
themselves. And that is physical autonomy. And I think it's really important to have physical autonomy.
Carrie, if someone wanted to get in touch with you
Mhm.
and engage in an exploration of playful movement, what would they do?
Well, they could go to my website, carrieowerko.com, and they would see that I have an online platform called The Playground. And that's what we do on the playground. Okay. We play. We play, there are recorded classes, shorter kind of recorded classes, but then we meet twice a week for these live, I would say they're almost like workshops where we do one day a week. We'll explore more like we use weights and bands and things like that. And another day, it's kind of a little, we don't use those tools. So it's more yoga based or we dance. Like oftentimes I incorporate dance. I just can't help it because I love it so much. And I find that my students do too. Like these people love to dance. So, and that's one of those things like dances, so you can get the hopping in, you can get the jumping in, you get all that stuff, and it's so much more fun. Your cardio, whatever, you get it all in, and it's so much more fun. It's so great for the brain. Learning choreography is great for your brain. It's
Yeah.
so good, it really is. In August, I'll be teaching in the city. I teach workshops all over the world. And these sessions are that. Like I do tell you what to do sometimes, it's not a but then there are periods within it where we're definitely exploring. And I try to vary what we do. So there's plenty of I like groundwork, I like rolling around, sort of developmental based movement progressions I think can be really helpful. Like just getting people in contact with the ground in ways that maybe as
Mm,
adults we're just not
mm.
doing. Yeah, and then exploring what we're capable of. I think that's a big piece that's sometimes missing is that I think people are capable of more than they realize, you know, that they believe they can. And even if they aren't ready yet, you know what I mean? That's the thing. It's like yet, because there is a way to develop capacities if you want to, if it's something you want to do. And I think that's the important thing is like, what is it that somebody wants to do? There is a way. There's a way to do the things you love.
Wonderful. Absolutely. There is a way to do the things we love.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, there's a way.
Thank you so much, Carrie. This has really been delightful. And thank you for having on. I love this idea. You said you were in Boston. I remember I went to school there and there was a studio called The Joy of Movement. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
this was like, I don't know, like 45 years ago
Well,
or
it was in
something.
I was there in the '80s
Yeah.
because I was there in the '80s. Mid '80s, I was in Boston, and there was the joy of movement was there. Yeah,
Yeah. And I always thought that was just a nice statement, like the joy of movement.
100%. Because in this world we live in, I think we're inundated with so much information now, this information age, and people can easily be dissuaded from experiencing the joy of movement. It's unbelievable the amount of maybe I will go pick up that heavy weight or maybe I will go do that martial art or maybe I will go take that tap class. You take that action and that creates the next action or the motivation or whatever. It really comes from taking a step. And if there's some weird rule or people want to get it right. And it's so unfortunate because if you move your body like long before all the programs and all of that, there were people moving, right? Children playing, developing amazing physical capacities. Nobody told them how to do it, what to do. They just did. It's great to be told what to do. It's great to have I'm not saying, if you're gonna do gymnastics, you're gonna learn some hard skill. Yeah, if it's you're gonna want some guidance. But there's just so much exploration that all of us could do. Like even just somebody listening to this podcast, just crawl around on your floor. That could be fun and that can be a beginning. Get down on all fours, crawl on your floor. And that's a start.
Absolutely. Carrie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You have increased my joy today just speaking to you, and I thank you for that.
Oh, great. Wonderful. It was lovely talking to you. And yeah, let's keep exploring your theory. Okay.
It's not too late.
It's not too late. Thank
Take
you.
care. Mhm. That was such a joyful conversation with Carrie Owerko. Permission to play. There you go. I think we all should give ourselves permission to play. I think we should play as much as possible because, as Carrie says, that's the way you learn. And life without play is a pretty bleak place, I would say. But play, not in a childish way, but in a more fully alive way. And I think this sense of being alive and losing that child sense of exploration of the varieties of movement is something that I don't know, at least I know as I get a little older, it's something I need to pay attention to. If movement is medicine, then play might be the flavor that makes us want to do it every day. So I remember at MEA, one of the things that we did when I showed up with Rebecca. So Rebecca's she's a world winning Hall of Fame endurance athlete. And I guess I tend to be physically imposing. I don't mean to be, but sometimes I can be. And when the people met us, like one of the guys came up to me and he's just like, "What are you gonna do to us?" There was this look of terror in his eyes. And I said, "No, no, it's not gonna be like that." And I remember our last day, we're like, okay, we're going to do pool work. And they were like, oh, what's that like? So we went up to this pool, and it was pool work in the way summer camp for 10-year-olds. It was like badminton, the pool, these silly races that we made up. It was all about giving people permission to play. And I think play is something that's just missing from so much of the fitness conversation. It's this grim sort of like, oh, I got to get up at 5 in the morning and go lift weights or whatever. And I mean, really? Can't we just have a little fun in this? Coming up in the Ages newsletter this week, we have a striking profile of Mark Hofeling, production designer whose work you've seen in everything from High School Musical to larger-than-life films that have really defined a generation. We're also sharing a killer recipe for black bean quinoa burgers. Oh, yum. I love these things. They're plant-based, they're protein-packed, and perfect for summer. On the science, why hitting snooze might be working against you. I hate the snooze button. I just got to say, it's one of those bugbears for me. Like, why does this thing even exist? Like, get up or go to sleep. I don't know. Makes me crazy. Just my thing, I guess. We're going to talk about how adding spice to meals can help you cut calories and some promising research on how vitamin D supplementation may help against biological aging. If you haven't subscribed already, subscribe to the Ages newsletter. And if you enjoyed this episode, please take a second to leave us a review. That's how we keep growing and bringing you the people and insights that matter. Okay, so what's going on with me? I'm in New York. I know this is really tedious, but I'm 5 weeks out of surgery, and big day today. I was able to walk, I guess it was about 4 blocks to go to my little grocery market and walk back slowly. That's about the extent of my range at the moment. We were gonna go up. I was gonna go, well, yes, I'm going uptown tonight, and we're gonna, like, take the subway, but then I was realized, like, oh, there's stairs, subway stations, rush hour, me sort of hobbling about, this is not good. No, we're gonna take a car. So, slowly, slowly, things get better. And I just have to remember this is a fairly traumatic thing on my knee. And trying to explore everything I can to speed this along. But there's only so much, right? You can only heal at the pace that the human body can heal. So once I'm through the other end of this, I think we're going to be doing a whole episode on how to heal and the sort of things that I've tried, the sort of things that I think may work, may not work. Some of the newer modalities also that work and don't work. Emphasis on the don't work. We'll get to that at some point in the future. I have a feeling this whole thing, soup to nuts, is probably 20 weeks. So we got a few to go. This week on Just Try This, I want to leave you with one thing to try that maybe can elevate your longevity game. And this week, let's talk about turning moments into memories, right? Intentionality. Rather than just letting things go by, being in the passenger seat, let's see what we can do to maybe lock these things in, right? Because what if experiences really without memories? Well, they don't really happen, right? So we live in a world where every beautiful moment seems to demand being captured, right? So you go out to some beautiful place, you go to Yosemite, I don't know, you see Beyonce in concert, and everybody's got their phones up, right? And they're making all these videos. Do they actually look at these videos afterwards? I don't know. I'm not sure that they do. I found that the moments I remember most deeply are the ones that I fully lived in, not the ones I stopped to record. So next time with your friends or family, just standing under a perfect evening sky, try and pause, breathe, take it in. Don't reach for your phone. Try and put it in your memory. Just be there. There's so much emphasis on this sort of perfect social media world, and the recording of it, the emphasis on the recording rather than the actual experiencing sort of, I don't know, counteracts that, I would say. So you're going to feel the air, hear the sounds, let your senses record it in high fidelity. Zoom, what are you really experiencing? That's how memories are made. It's by presence. It's not by pixels. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here. Stay curious, stay optimistic, and we'll see you next week. Take care now.